and welcome to this episode of Undercurrent, where we look at what's been happening in and around Perth. I'm your host, Lucy Marchant. Now, for our first story of the episode, the National Disabilities Insurance Scheme, known as the NDIS, has announced that it will expand its trial sites in Western Australia, meaning that more people will be able to gain access to ongoing support. This week I met with Ron Chalmers from the NDIS to ask about how the scheme will affect Western Australians, such as Chris and Sue Minutilo.
The National Disability Insurance Scheme is probably one of the most significant changes in how people with disabilities can get the support that they need to lead a good life within the community that we've seen in a generation.
How long has the scheme been operational?
The trial of the scheme nationally is now a few years in operation. People are experiencing a lot of positive outcomes from the individual plans that are being designed by them to meet their own particular needs.
Well, I suppose with the NDIS is recognised and they look at what's needed more so than when we did it so many years ago. Chris actually wasn't diagnosed until he was about 7 years old properly. So until then, all the therapy he needed, we had to basically do. So we'd be doing things like, I can remember working nights to help pay for therapy, and it wasn't cheap. It was just something that we had to do.
What have been some of the struggles along the way?
Back in the younger years, it was more a struggle to do things more so towards therapy. It was harder to get things like speech and occupational therapy and physiotherapy and things like that. So, we'd basically have to go and work to pay for therapy that was required.
Right across Australia, the disability service system was characterised by rationed funding. So different parts of the nation had different schemes in place, but funding was not at a level that it should have been. What the National Disability Insurance Scheme does is to provide a strong focus on what supports people need to lead good lives in their community, but it also provides certainty if in fact funding is needed there as well.
Every day that he goes out, he's learning new skills, be it life skills or independence. He could be learning money skills. The whole variety of things. He'll see friends, so he's learning, interaction between people, social.
Would any of this be possible without help from the NDIS?
It would be very difficult. Obviously, during the week, without the assistance, no, it wouldn't be possible because Christopher does need help. He needs somebody with him, and the 25 hours involves cost, so there's a component of funding given to you for that 25 hours, and that pays, either Rocky Bay or it pays the carers that take him to school. So without that, no, it would be virtually impossible because you're looking at the income of, a person.
Would you say the service is personalised to what Chris needs?
Yes, definitely. We sit down with our local area coordinators and we work out what we feel is the best plan for Chris, with Chris, of course. Chris is so much into his sport that we revolve it a lot around using the sport to teach him life skills and independence and anything else he really requires. And then we've got, other avenues that we go through, be it Chris is doing the Duke of Ed program at the moment, and he also does a component called ASDAN, and that's helping him to learn things like money skills and etc. So, we've worked in a whole plan with Chris, but we've used his sport to be able to assist him to achieve those goals, and we find that's the best way to do it with Chris.
You had an information session today. What were some of the concerns raised by the community?
Many of the questions that we're asked are around, will the supports that I'm receiving now be impacted negatively in any way? And we're pleased to say that the answer to that is no. The NDIS is an incredibly positive development, and it will bring a great deal of certainty for people in terms of making sure that they have the supports and access to services that they need so that they can get on and lead good lives in their community.
You want to keep playing soccer?
Keep playing soccer, yeah. Get some more goals and that's it.
And that's it?
Lucy Marchant for Undercurrent. The privatisation of Western power has been a topic of discussion for years, and a Liberal government has been pushing to make that happen, until very recently. Bas Tadros with the report.
Today I'm talking to Les McLaughlin, Electrical Trade Union State Secretary, about his view on the government's stance of the Western power privatisation and the potential ramifications.
The government hasn't changed its position. I mean, they've got an intent to privatise Western power, and they will privatise Western power if they're re-elected.
First, the position of the government has been clear that our policy is not to sell Western power. The Premier has indicated quite clearly that at the next budget we will review the policy, and if we decide to sell or lease Western power, we will take it to an election and get a mandate for the people for that. What could be more democratic?
And what's been said in the public just now is really just trying to manage and massage a political message. They're aware that privatisation is not popular in the community, and they're trying to put over a softening view. But people shouldn't be fooled by that. Their intent is to privatise, and they will do that if they are re-elected. If the government's going to cut your services, and by that I mean if you privatise a system, jobs will be lost. We know jobs will be lost. That means maintenance goes down, which means reliability of the service goes down, costs inevitably go up, and tragically, the position it leaves it open for is a higher risk of bushfires, and particularly during this kind of weather that the climate has changed. The risk of bushfires is going to be higher, and if you reduce maintenance in power systems at that time, you increase that risk. Well, the most recent ones was the tragic Black Saturday fires in Victoria, which has actually ended up in a Royal Commission in Victoria, and then just only in December last year, a handing down of the coroner's report. Both the Royal Commission and the coroner's report found that the vast majority of lives lost there were lost as a direct result of poor maintenance of the electrical system. And that is probably the biggest threat that we have now with a drying climate, more conditions, more fire hazards potential. We know, and we've spoken even with the fire department, we know that bushfires are starting earlier, they're lasting longer. Now, anybody who takes action that knowingly puts the risk higher is definitely doing the country and the community a disservice. So we say that common sense should prevail. The system needs to be well maintained. It's a public system for the benefit of the public. It shouldn't be a quick grab for cash. When you've got a natural monopoly, such as your health, your education, utilities like power, they're essential for the community. So they should be in the hands of the community. They shouldn't be in the hands of people who are just out to make a profit. I mean, that's what business is about. I mean, that's their job. I'm not blaming business for wanting to make a profit, but they're going to make a profit at the expense of a reliable service to West Australians. It is a dumb move. It's a quick grab for cash, because Western Power brings money, 100 million plus a year, into the West Australian government. Now, what we've seen here in Western Power is for the last 2 years there's been no electrical apprentices put on. There's been a few lines apprentices put on, and this year no apprentices at all. That's someone getting ready to privatise. There is absolutely no doubt about that.
Bas Tadros for Undercurrent.
This week we asked the people of Perth if they think Australia should have its own inquiry into the Iraq invasion. Bas Tadros hit the streets.
We're taking to the streets of Perth today to find out the majority's opinion and views on whether Australia should have an independent inquiry into the Iraq invasion. As we've seen in the past with the UK inquiry, there's been some interesting debates and information that's come to light, whether the whole thing should have even taken place in the first place. So it'll be interesting to see what Perth has to say.
You know, those civilisations have been under dictatorship, for want of a better expression, and been governed in that manner for generations, for millennia. And I don't think it's the US or Australia or the UK's right to go in there and destroy a country on the flawed basis of that there were weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, I don't think there was any. I mean, there is need for some things, but I don't think there was any need for that.
I think it turned out that intelligence was wrong.
Yes.
I think most of us thought it was a bit dodgy at the time. But if you look at our history, wherever the US goes, we go, so I wasn't surprised that we went.
It's incumbent upon all of us who love freedom to understand the new world in which we live. John Howard understands that.
We are seeing a lot of politicians, particularly Tony Blair, in this period talking about how that war was perhaps a mistake, and since Australia did go into that war, we should also be held accountable for what happened there.
And should Australia follow suit and have their own independent inquiry and find out why we made the decisions we've made and why we got involved?
Yeah. I would say most countries should look at things independently.
Yes, definitely. I think there was a lot of people killed that didn't need to be.
A thorough investigation should be carried out, I believe. Yeah. And a thorough investigation probably should be carried out before any of these actions are done in the first place.
I think it depends on the scope of the inquiry and what the intended outcome would be. If we're just going to follow down the same track as the UK, then no, I wouldn't think so.
I think it's pretty clear what happened. Howard was just going along with the bigger allies, the US and Britain, so I'm not sure if there's much point in wasting money on an inquiry.
No, because I think we know why.
We know why?
Because we were doing it because we're just doing whatever the US told us to do.
Absolutely. I think we have a lot to learn from situations like those. I think an inquiry would be good also to see whether, the war is ongoing, so I think we do have a lot to learn, and perhaps an inquiry is the best way to go about it.
Well, Perth, you've had your say, and it seems like the majority are saying that maybe there is a need for an inquiry and there should be some thought in future before we go into a coalition-led war. Bas Tadros, Undercurrent.
Stay with us for more Undercurrent after a short break. Welcome back to Undercurrent. Australian water has been fluoridated for years to promote dental health and help prevent against tooth decay. A Western Australian organisation thinks that this is an outdated idea and is outraged that the state is continuing to add fluoride to drinking water without public consultation. Michael So with the report.
Today I'll be speaking to Fluoride-Free WA Chairman James Fairbairn about the effects of fluoride on health, as well as the planned introduction of fluoride in rural towns in Western Australia. Tell us a brief history about fluoridation of water in Australia.
In Australia, it started getting rolled out in the 1960s, and here in Western Australia particularly, it was legislated in 1966 by state parliament to introduce water fluoridation. That legislation itself specified that the objective was to get every town of over 1,000 residents fluoridated with water at around 1 part per million. But in the context of a potential toxin, obviously that's a significant amount. Many countries in the Western world, for example in mainland Europe, looked at fluoridation programs. Some introduced them but then cancelled them a few years later. Some never introduced them at all for a variety of ethical and medical reasons. So here in Western Australia at the moment, about 92% of West Australians drink artificially medicated water, which has what they call fluoride in it. In fact, the fluoride is hexafluorosilicic acid, which is an industrial waste product.
Why do you think Australian governments, including our state parliament here, add fluoride to the water?
It seems like a good idea. It seems like if you can add this small amount into people's drinking water and everybody has to drink water, then it'll help fight tooth decay. However, all the studies show, both here in Australia, one of the few countries that still does use water fluoridation, and countries which don't, that how fluoride works on the tooth is when it's applied topically, so when you brush your teeth as opposed to when you drink it. So why do they do it? Because they believe it's a good thing, but more importantly, it's fossilised policy. They've been doing it for so long now, it's too difficult to admit we were wrong. There are actually better ways of doing it. And our key argument is, of course, that it's much better to invest these many millions of dollars every year into education programs and dental services as opposed to this magic one-size-fits-all pill going into people's drinking water.
So why do you think people should be informed about the effects of fluoride?
I think it's essential that people are informed about the effects of fluoride on their diet, because as I said before, this is something they are consuming every single day, and it's not just fluoride in your water, but it's also anything that's been made with the water. It's not just drinking water. So if you go and have a takeaway coffee, you're drinking fluoride. You have a cup of tea, you're drinking the fluoride that's in the water, but also tea itself has naturally occurring fluoride in it. So you're getting a lot of fluoride in your diet every single day. Now, when you look at it in terms of this is a highly toxic material that everybody acknowledges, if you have too much fluoride in your diet, will be adverse to your health.
When did they start adding fluoride into the water in the towns of Newman, Kununurra, Port Hedland, Moora, Dongara and Pont Denison? Yep.
At the moment they haven't. The process is, from a legal standpoint, the Department of Health through this committee need to inform a town that it will be fluoridated and needs to give the people of that town the ability to question this and say no if necessary. And many towns have in the past. Carnarvon did about 4 or 5 years ago. People at Carnarvon said we don't want to be fluoridated, and they backed away. They didn't get fluoride added to their water. Bunbury did it about 15 years ago. And what we're aiming to do is try and lobby as hard as we can to get parliamentarians to look at this for the first time in 50 years. Because that is a long, long time, and the science has moved on a lot. Our understanding of medical ethics have moved on a lot, but also just general acceptance on how you can deal with tooth decay has moved on a lot.
James has just summed up well about fluoride and the future of it in our state. Michael So reporting for Undercurrent.
There's a new service in town that lets those without a home have access to a free laundry service. It's called the Orange Sky Laundry. Elise Van Aken went to check it out.
Orange Sky Laundry is the world's first mobile laundry service for the homeless. Originating in Brisbane just 2 years ago, the service is now available across Australia and has landed in Perth. The small but mighty van is fitted with washers and dryers, providing a place for homeless citizens to do their laundry for free.
I saw Nick and Lucas, the Young Australians of the Year, who started OSL. I heard an interview they did on radio, and when I got home that evening, I emailed Orange Sky, looked them up and emailed them, and within a few days I was at a team leaders meeting when we first launched in Perth in February. So we operate in Northbridge, Highgate, Fremantle, a couple of locations. What we're trying to do is restore some dignity and respect, raise the health standards by offering a clean washing, obviously, and the number of people that have thanked us, our friends, is numerous, and every week I see a huge impact.
How much money does it take to run the service?
Well, we're very lucky. We run off power provided by City of Fremantle, but each van comes with its own generator. So it's really just the money that we need to fuel the generator. To set up a van from scratch, we need about $100,000, which in our case was donated by the Jelly Family Foundation. That's why this girl is called Jellyfish. Each wash, we require about $6, which is usually kindly provided by donors.
My name's Clinton Dawson. I've been living on the street now for about 2.5 years, and there's facilities out there, and I don't like being on the street, but we need a bit more help. They're always going on about help for the people that are living on the street, but they don't seem to do anything about it. And so every Monday night now I just sleep across the road at the bed shop there, and I get my washing every Monday night. And
what's the biggest impact Orange Sky Laundry has had in your life?
Well, they're a nice bunch of people, and it's good to have a chat with someone. They make you laugh, and you get nice clean clothes, and they come from nice people. This service here, it's good, but I think they need more varieties of food and places where people can shower and people, can go and get help. From here to the city, it's a totally different situation. The city's got more varieties and they've got more things that they can offer. But Freo, it's a nice place, but they've only got limited things that you can do. I don't wish it on anyone to be on the street, but it's made me stronger. It's made me respect things more. but I don't like it. I stay strong on the outside because you have to, but I'm not doing good on the inside.
Well, every single person, every single friend whose washing we do, we also have a positive connection and conversation with each and every one, and they go away feeling not just happier and healthier with some nice, clean, dry washing, but that conversation that we have, every conversation we have is a positive connection. So that really helps, we find.
To me, I think there's a lot that everyone can do who are lucky enough to have a home to help those who are homeless. And for me, I think just a simple concept like this, all we're doing is washing clothes, but the most important thing is we're having a conversation, we're speaking to our friends on the street every week, finding out what's important to them, how their week's been, and just really being someone to listen to every week.
And how important are clean clothes to homeless people for their progression out of the homeless cycle?
So for them to just be able to feel they've got clean clothes on, I think it certainly gives them a refreshed state of mind, and it just makes each day for them just a little bit easier.
What started off as a crazy idea from two young Australians is now making the world a better place, one spin cycle at a time. I'm Elise Van Aken for Undercurrent.
David Icke is one of the most famous conspiracy theorists in the world. This week, Lucy Nichol went to talk to him about his Australian tour.
So I'm here with David Icke at Ascot Racecourse for the first part of his Wake Up Australia tour. What made you decide to come to Australia, David?
I'm kind of going everywhere. It's called the Worldwide Wake Up Tour because for the last 26 years I've been travelling all over the world, asking questions like, who really controls world events? Why is the world going in the direction it is, to more and more surveillance, more and more control, more and more of what Orwell envisaged? And I don't think for a minute, having looked at it, that Orwell and Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, were coming from purely imagination.
Have you ever met L. Ron Hubbard, that wrote a lot of books when he was alive, and what was your opinions of him?
Well, I never met Ron Hubbard. I think Scientology is something that is part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Is it tempting to run your business as a religion for the tax benefits?
No, it's not. It's not tempting to me to run anything except as a free-flowing, free thought, looking at all possibility and seeing what the truth is, rather than, oh no, it's not really a religion, even though if you don't do this, you're an outsider, you're not doing it right. But it's good for tax benefits. Damn the tax benefits.
What advice would you give to your children that are about my age? Like, what should we be doing now?
We need people to go to a state of free thought where everything is looked at in and of itself. Does it make sense? Never mind what you were told at school. Never mind what you're told by the mainstream media. Never mind what you're told by peer pressure. What do you think of this situation? What I'm saying is, take your power back, start looking at information dispassionately, without preconceived idea, without reflex action dismissal, and say, not have I been told this is right by some aspect of the system, what do I think about it? And make your own mind up. And we're faced with a position now with the Trans-Pacific Partnership and our version in Europe, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, and CETA between the EU and Canada. These trade agreements are actually one trade agreement under different names because they're all saying the same. And that is giving extraordinary power to corporations to take governments to corporate courts for making decisions for the benefit of the people or the benefit of the environment, but could be construed to affect future possible profits of the corporations. This is how far down this road we've gone.
One of the big issues in America is obviously gun laws, and I've read that you're pro the rights to people having their own guns. Have you ever met anyone that hunts aliens, and what are your thoughts on politically, like, fighting or preparing for, like, war that's from threats not of this earth?
Well, first of all, I've never met anyone who's hunted an alien. And in terms of gun laws, I'm not in favour of people owning guns or people not owning guns. That's not the debate that I'm saying should take place. The question is, why, in the United States, for instance, is there such a campaign to disarm the population at the same time, this is the point, that the law enforcement authorities are being armed to the teeth with high-tech military hardware. We're having county police forces going round in tanks given to them by the Pentagon under something called the 1033 policy.
As you can see, there's hundreds of people waiting here for David Icke to get on stage. He's going to lecture until probably 10 p.m. tonight. I've been Lucy Nicol, reporting for Undercurrent.
Thank you for watching this episode of Undercurrent. Don't forget to catch up with us online and download our West TV app on your mobile devices. Take care, and we'll see you next week.